digital audio workstation is a piece of software for recording and creating music. There are many DAWs on the market at a variety of prices and styles, but it is fair to say that they have more in common than differences. A DAW enables you to do these major tasks. 1. Record, playback and edit audio tracks. 2. Record, playback, create and edit MIDI tracks. 3. Use inbuilt software synthesizers for creating a wide variety of instrument sounds, effects and noises. 4. Use digital audio processing tools for modifying the sound of audio from tracks. 5. To mix and balance multiple tracks together. 6. To export files in a shareable format. And 7. To save, retrieve and organize projects and work. There will be many specialist creative and editing tools included in your DAW, but these 7 functions are the main jobs that it will do. These functions are presented in a UI framework that needs to be understood and with which you are comfortable. Getting a good feel for the general layout will help you remember things as you go into more depth and learn the details. DAWs do vary in look and feel in the way that they present their tools to the user. We are using PreSonus Studio One for demonstration and teaching purposes, which has an elegant, straightforward user interface that is laid out as follows. Along the top of the window are the standard computer menu items. Most commands and actions can be found somewhere here if you get lost among the on-screen icons. At the top of the working area are the screen tools, and these set the action of the mouse cursor or pointer, for example, for selecting erasing, drawing, slicing, moving, and so on. Just below the screen tools, rulers and guides run along the top of the tracks area. Now, music is time-based by nature. You don't hear it all at once, and these rulers allow you to see the place where you are playing or working at any given time in the music. This might be measured in musical terms by indicating, say, measure number 17, or in absolute time, for example, 50 seconds in from the beginning of the piece. The tracks area itself displays both audio and MIDI tracks that you record or create. There is a small portion to the left of the track called the track header, displaying the track name and a few useful controls such as mute, solo, and a simple volume fader. The track header will also have an indicator to show that it is correctly receiving a signal from the outside world when you record. This will be a digital audio stream or MIDI data from your controller keyboard. An info or inspector window on the left side of the tracks area displays more details about any track which is selected. A detail edit window at the bottom of the screen provides a close-up of the track data for any selected track. Depending on the nature of the track, it will display either an audio waveform or the previously mentioned piano roll MIDI editor. Again, to the left of this area is another inspector window providing more information about what is happening in the editor. On the right is a browser panel that allows you to see your resources, that is, all the available inbuilt synthesizers, sounds, loops, audio snippets, audio processing tools called plugins, and so on. And then, along the bottom of the screen, we have the transport controls, inheriting their name from the age of mechanical tape recorders. This toolbar provides buttons for starting and stopping playback, setting the tempo, metronome, and other related play and record actions. And then, of course, don't forget, there are always useful right-click context menus which are always conveniently to hand at your mouse pointer, providing a drop-down list of relevant options and actions depending on the location of your mouse pointer. Now we've seen how it all hangs together, let's examine each of the main functions in turn. Here's a reminder again of those major DAW functions that you can do. You can record, edit and playback audio tracks, MIDI tracks. You can use soft synths on the MIDI tracks. You can apply digital audio processing to all the tracks. You can mix multiple tracks together and export shareable audio files. And of course, you can organize and save your projects. We'll start with a look at the audio tracks. For this example, I'll record a few bars of acoustic guitar. Do remember, this is just an overview on recording. You'll find more detail in the assignments. So, starting with a new session, I'll create an empty track using the Add Track button. I'll give it a name, confirm it's a mono audio track, and then click OK to create the track. I can arm the track, that is, get it ready for recording, by clicking on the record button in the track header. Then I'm going to check that the metronome is on so that I can play in time, and now I'm ready to start recording. You won't hear the metronome because I'm wearing headphones at this moment. I start recording with this button here in the transport controls. Now the audio is captured and I can play it back. The important points to remember from this quick overview of audio tracks are as follows. Audio tracks can be mono or stereo. There must be a microphone or digital audio input assigned to the track. The track display shows and displays the audio wave as it is recorded. The track must be armed before recording can take place, and a metronome is available to help you keep time if needed. Now let's consider how a MIDI track is different to this. When we create and record on a MIDI track, there are two possibilities for playback. One, as a MIDI-only track, there will be no audio, but the recorded MIDI data can be sent back out of the computer into the studio, where it can drive an external MIDI device. Now this may be the same one that was used as a controller to generate the MIDI for recording in the first place, such as an electric piano or hardware synthesizer. Alternatively, and this is the most typical setup, as a MIDI plus instrument track, the MIDI data will automatically be passed to a built-in internal software synthesizer inside the DAW. In this case, when we play back the track, we will hear the audio output of the synth. But though we hear the track as audio, the display is of the original recorded MIDI data. Let's look at this in the DAW and create a couple of MIDI instrument tracks to accompany our recording of the acoustic guitar. Here is our original guitar track. This time I'll right-click in the track header area and from the drop-down menu add an instrument track. We need to load a sound into the synthesizer on the track, so I'll go over to the browser and find the upright bass. Here are the basses and here is the upright bass. When that is loaded, I can simply play the instrument from my controller keyboard in the studio. I'll use the metronome and play along with the original recording. Now let's play that back. It sounds okay. I'll add another track, a flute this time. Over to the browser. This time I can play along with the original guitar and the bass. I'll play that back. Well, sounds fine. I have easily added a MIDI bass and flute to my original acoustic guitar recording. So, MIDI instrument tracks record just like audio tracks. We can add them in the same way, and they need to be armed before recording, and we can use the metronome. But remember, when creating MIDI or these instrument tracks, the input to the track must be MIDI data, probably from a controller keyboard, and the track will display MIDI data. When we direct this MIDI data to an inbuilt software synth, we will hear the output from that synth on the track. This is the setup which is typically the bedrock of our electronic music creation. Now, to really understand instrument tracks, we should take another look at the software synthesizers. The familiar hardware synth is, of course, a self-contained electronic musical instrument, which typically will comprise of a keyboard for playing, a sound generator that makes the actual sound of the synth, some memory for storage, a physical control surface for manipulating the sound, audio outputs, a power supply, and of course a case to hold all the bits together. The soft synth or synth in your DAW have all the same elements. They just share some components with the computer. The case, the power supply, the memory, and the computing power that your PC offers. Now, soft synths may not have a nice built-in piano keyboard or a tactile control surface, but they make up for this with their convenience, flexibility, variety, and vast quantities of ready-made sounds thanks to your PC's computing power and vast storage capacity. Soft synths come in three basic flavors: sample-based synths, for example, samplers, sample playback synths; parametric synths, that is modular, subtractive, FM, and so on; drum synths, for example, beatboxes or beat slicers. The sample-based synths are typically responsible for providing real instrument sounds, acoustic instruments like pianos, strings, guitars, basses, choirs, and so on. Parametric synths are typically used for creating synthesized lead sounds, pads, and other creative electronic sounds. Drum synths provide drum kit sounds, percussion, and they often have a specialist user interface that supports pattern and beat creation. Now, whatever synths are available in your DAW, they will come with a large library of preset sounds. Clearly, knowing the synths and the sounds, how to access them and use them for instrument tracks is very important. So here's a quick overview of how we create synth instrument tracks in Studio One. Let's look at a couple of ways to add an inbuilt soft synth to an instrument track. First, we can click the Add Track button and create a track. Give it a name, a type, the instrument track, and set the input. We can see that the input is connected, but we hear nothing because it is only MIDI data. No synth is loaded onto the track. We need to go to our browser window and find the synth called Presence, which we can drag to the track. When we do this, the synth user interface is displayed and it is attached to the track. We can see this in the track header drop-down menu. The interface can be closed and opened by clicking on this icon. A sound for the synth can be chosen from the synth user interface, and when I play my controller, we'll hear the sound on the track. Now I'll delete the track and use a different method for creating an instrument track by, this time, going directly to my browser window and dragging the present synth to the track's area. This will automatically create an instrument track with the Presence synth loaded. To add a sound, I can either load one from the synth front panel as before, or I can drag a sound from the browser, this time say a guitar, to the track, and I can click OK to load it into the synth. Finally, and unsurprisingly, I can drag a sound directly from the browser window to the track's area, and it will both create a track, load the appropriate synth onto the track, and the sound into the synth automatically, all in one go. And this is by far the simplest way to create instrument tracks on PreSonus ready for recording. Now, in part 2 of this lecture, we'll look at digital audio processing, mixing, exporting files, and saving projects.